All right, let's do some more nesting of Livewire components. We have individual rows here. This is kind of a setup for when we're going to add like an edit button. We have these individual rows, but it's all in one Livewire component. So I already kind of talked to you about some of the drawbacks of that, where if you refresh this Livewire component, all of these modals get sent back and forth in the browser and whatever. So let's break out nested Livewire components for these rows and just talk about the strategy and how we're going to do it and whatever. So this is our show posts component where we're looping through all the posts and we have our TRs. So these are our table rows. Let's extract these into a nested component. So artisan make Livewire, we'll call it post row, and we'll let it make that component. And then let's call it right here. So post row, we're gonna need to pass in the post. And if you recall, when you have the same name, you can use the shorthand syntax. So we're gonna pass in the post right here. And then we'll take all this, we'll cut it, and then we'll open up post row, the Livewire component. We'll make a property called post, and then that'll get set automatically because we're passing that in there. And then inside post row blade.php, we can paste in that big TR. And yeah, so let's just see if our refactor took. All right, we refreshed and it worked. If I hit this delete button, that works, but let's just check this out. If I say confirm and then I delete, unable to call component method, public method, delete not found on component. That's because now our post row component doesn't have the delete method. Our show posts component has the delete method. So let's think about this conceptually. We could take that delete method and put it inside of the row component, and that would be fine. But what would happen is we would hit confirm. So when we open this, we would hit delete, and it would send a network request to Livewire to delete the post. Then we would have to dispatch some sort of event to refresh the list of posts to delete this row from the table. And that's very kind of similar to what we did here. We have a nested component where we add a new post, it does its own Livewire stuff, it comes back and it dispatches a refresh to the parent. And that's a fine strategy, but in this scenario, we don't actually need that intermediate step. We can just call delete. We can keep delete on the parent and just call it from this nested component. And there's a few ways to do that. I'll show you a few ways. We'll talk about it. So there's one thing we can do. Let's go to our actual close button or our delete button here. We have wire click. Oh man, the scrolling, the doom of using such nested things. We have wire click delete. This doesn't exist on this component. We can just call parent.delete if we want, and I'll show you that this works. We have some post here. We can say confirm and then hit delete. And okay, so something broke. This is a great opportunity because I missed something and I know what it is. And this is a cautionary tale. Prepare yourself. In show posts, we nested a component, right? But we didn't add a key. You've heard me blab about keys, but anytime you have a for each loop, make sure there's a key, especially if it's a Livewire nested component. If it's a Livewire nested component, it needs a key. Otherwise, bad things will happen like you just saw. We need to tell Livewire a specific unique key for each nested Livewire component in a loop. Super duper important. Okay, now we've added that. Let's delete a different one and make sure that this works. Confirm, delete. Remember we added that 1 second delay. That's why it's taking a while. Okay, so that worked. So kind of case closed. If you want to leave it at that, go for it. $parent, let's go back there and show that to you. $parent is extremely powerful. Any wire click in a nested component, you can call stuff on the parent and pass stuff to it. And it's a very nice experience. However, there's one problem with it. The problem is if you are in show posts, you don't know where delete is getting called. You don't know that it's getting called deep inside this component. So again, very powerful, but not the most transparent. So we're going to try a different strategy. Instead of calling $parent.delete, let's dispatch an event and we'll call it delete. Okay? And this is just like the same strategy we did here to say added and then refresh the whole table. So we're dispatching delete. And now let's go inside post row here. We can listen for that. I guess we want to say deleted. So let's call it deleted. Delete. Okay, let's call it deleted. So at deleted, meaning when a deleted event is dispatched from inside this component, we want to call delete. However, if you recall, inside show posts, the delete method requires a post ID. So we need to pass in a post ID. No problem. We can just echo it out simply like that. Okay. So now I like this pattern better than $parent when you can. I would say use these because it's much easier to follow and see where the dots connect. Okay. So let's delete this component. We say confirm, hit delete. It loads and then it's deleted, and that's great. And if we look at the network requests, only one was sent. So it's super efficient. It's just as efficient as anything. It's great. It's just confirm, delete, a single network request. And now when all these requests are sent back and forth, so if you have like 10 rows and this parent is refreshing itself, all of this stuff isn't going to be re-rendered and resent every time. It's so efficient. We're not bundling the entire row and all of the modals for that row with every request. So if you have 100 rows and you refresh that page or that part of that table or add a post and it needs to refresh the parent, the HTML that comes back from the server isn't this HTML times 100. It's just 100 placeholders. Because remember, components are islands. So when we made this a nested component, it's now an island unto itself. So this is something I'm going to keep talking about, but it's just much more efficient. So this setup, we actually just made our app more efficient without costing us anything. In this scenario, we had to now send 2 requests when you add the post, and then when you refresh the list, that's 2 requests, one to this component and then one to the parent. This, because we're just deleting it, this just calls the parent directly. So it's only one request. It's just as efficient as it was before, but it's actually way more efficient because we've hidden all of this inside of its own nested component so it doesn't bloat up the payload of the parent. So if you're following any of that, again, you don't have to do this stuff. All this is extra. But if you can, there's always cost with nesting Livewire components. There's complexity costs and sometimes performance costs. But if you can eat that cost, this is a scenario where it's only a win. You're just winning by doing this. So I wanted to mention it. Let's keep going. I'll see you in the next video.